Welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast. And we're joined by Dalton and Chris today. And this is one of my favorite times of the draft season because today is when we start breaking down the draft class and start grading the players using 2025 game film. So we call these mid-season scouting reports. But before we jump into the mid-season scouting reports, Chris, it's great to have you back on the show. How are you feeling tonight?
I'm feeling pretty good. My Chiefs are playing the Jaguars. They're now up 14-0. Right now, I'm in a good mood today.
Cool. And Dalton, how about you? How you feeling?
It's a long weekend as a Penn State and Raiders fan. It was a rough sports weekend, but I'm very much in draft mode now that there's very little to root for on Saturdays and Sundays. This is a nice break.
Cool. Well, we are going to be breaking down the draft class. This is the first podcast, but every single podcast that the draft professor does from now until December is going to look really similar to what we're about to do here. So every year, the draft professor breaks down the draft class. It's an art as far as how many players we put in a podcast. This year, the goal is 8. Last year, there were podcasts, we were doing 16, and I was told I was crazy. I'm still crazy. I'm just not that crazy. So we are going to be talking about these defensive linemen. So we're going to talk about Ahmad Moten from Miami, Damonic Williams from Oklahoma, Jackie Marshall from Baylor, Christen Miller from Georgia, Logan Fano from Utah, Ethan Burke from Texas, Clayton Smith from Arizona, and the last player will be Quincy Rhodes from Arkansas. So, Chris, what did you think of Ahmad Moten? Hey, Chris, I think you're muted.
I apologize. I'm looking at something here for a clip from my own. I like him. I think he'll go back to the draft just because he still has junior eligibility, but he's a big guy. I like that he's very mobile for his size. I think he's perfect size for a defensive tackle. He's not this 350-pound guy where you go, oh crap, I don't know if he can, keep up. But he's not small, so he's just perfect size here. I love the fact that he is a penetrator. I like the fact that he is very explosive. He still needs work in terms of his pass rush moves, and he needs work on finishing. But if he comes out right now, I could see him go 3rd, 4th round. I just think, though, with the amount of talent that's leaving Miami and the amount of people that are going to be in this draft, people probably advise him, hey, look, stay a year. And if you keep this up, you'll be a top 10 pick in 2027.
Nice. So, okay. I love it. Absolutely love it. Dalton, what was your assessment of Ahmad Moten from Miami?
Very similar in terms of the notes. The explosiveness is what jumps off the screen right away. And then, I'd like to see a little more variety of pass rush moves. That's kind of why, though, you kind of hit on it, Chris, the fact that he is only a junior. That's kind of what makes me a little higher on him. I kind of would like to see him come out this year because I think I would like to see an NFL team get a hold of him now and start coaching him now. Because my worry is if he goes back to school, he's just going to be a man amongst boys and develop a lot of bad habits. I think he would benefit from going into the NFL this year. I kind of hope he does. To me, he's out of this whole group of guys we're going to talk about tonight, he's actually the highest grade I had on anybody. I have a late 2nd round grade on him. I was really impressed with the motor and the work ethic and the alignment versatility, I think, is so huge with him. The fact that you could really jump him around on the defensive line, depending on situations, I think could be really useful at the next level. My only concern, like on tape, really, is he has like a little bit of rawness, and I think you see it a little bit in terms of gap responsibility at times. That's kind of the one area where I sometimes see it. But again, I think those are things that I'm worried if he comes back next year, he isn't going to need to work on his moves. He's going to freelance even more. Because again, he's going to be able to kind of do whatever he wants if he keeps playing college next year. I think he's physically just ready to move on. And I think that's kind of why I'm really excited about him right now. There's so much potential.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons that we do these on podcasts now is, we're still this episode's being recorded October 6th. I should say we're live on October 6th. So we still have a decent number of games for Miami to play. I believe they have about 8 games left. But in addition to that, this is a player who would have to declare for the draft. So he's not in the draft. He has to declare for the draft, as opposed to a senior who runs out of eligibility and is in the draft. I want to give a shout out to Randall Slifer. He was the first draft professor that said like Ahmad Moten wasn't on the Miami player list. But this is a player that Randall saw the same explosiveness that both of you mentioned. So definitely want to talk about that. So Ryan Sparks, we are doing defensive line. So we will have edge and defensive tackles in the episode. And we have 7 more to go. So Ryan, I'm curious, did you have a grade on Ahmad Moten, or have you not watched him yet? So Dalton had did you say late round 2 grade?
Yep, late round 2.
And then Chris had a round 3-4 grade. So
yeah, because I think the one thing, just to jump in, the one other concern we don't mention is he this good because of him, or is it that Miami's defensive line has, Moten? They also have Ruben Baines, so it's sort of, we can't focus on. He's not getting double teams because you got to worry about the other 2 guys on the edge. It's like they are so loaded at defensive line, it's scary.
Yeah, that is definitely a very good point. That you do wonder if it's everything around him, if that's just a very good team defense. But I do think that's kind of part of what I like about him is that I think he plays team defense well. And now I think that raises his floor really high for me. But I agree. I don't know if he's going to I'm very curious to see if he would dominate at the next level the way he has at times this year.
Yeah. So that's where we are on Ahmad Moten now. Next player, Damonic Williams from Oklahoma. Dalton, where were you on Damonic Williams?
So for Williams, I was a little lower on him out of this group. I had a 5th round grade on him. I like the athleticism, plays with a high football IQ, sheds blocks well, keeps hands off him. And I like that he's very active in the pass rush. But I do worry what his ceiling is going to be at the next level. Doesn't have a ton of length. Pad level's not great. And his functional strength, I do worry is not quite where it needs to be. And I mean, it's just 6'1", 323 is not a great build if you're not a freak athlete, and I don't know if he is. That's kind of where I'm at with him.
Okay. Chris, how about you? Where are you on Damonic Williams, the defensive tackle from Oklahoma?
Right now, probably they're on 5th or 6th. He'll probably go higher, though, because he's a run stuffer. And look, he's excellent stopping the run. He has an 81.7 run stopping grade from Pro Football Weekly. He's just a tank of a man, 6'1", 323. That's what he is, though. I mean, he's a pure bull rusher, doesn't have a lot of pass rushing skills. He can wear down pretty often because he's just a big, thick guy. He's, he's a 2-down player right now. Is there a role from the NFL? Yeah, because we've seen so many teams need somebody to stop the run, so he'll be taken. But that's all he is. He's Mike Pennell, Derek Nandi, somebody who you'll use him as a rotational piece, but nothing really more than that.
So how would you compare him to some of the day 3 defensive tackles that went last year? So I'm thinking like Jordan Phillips, and then there was another one. Is it CJ? Was he on Indiana? CJ West. There we go. How would you compare him to CJ West or Jordan Phillips, which were both day 3 defensive tackles last year?
Probably a little bit less than West, just because West had pass rushing ability. Again, he's that's all he is. He just bull rushes you in there. He doesn't get a lot of production. Now, and granted, that's when Oklahoma's not asking him to do that. They're asking him to just be the run stuffer, and he does that well. So, I think he's sort of limited in that, if he's not able to bully centers and guards, he's going to be in trouble.
Good. And I need to comment that we have an all-star chat. So Ryan Sparks, you were here at the first podcast today. You're here at this one. Brian, you're back. And then where is he? Brandon, you're back. Like, Brandon, you're usually here. Like last year, once you found the podcast, Brandon was here literally every night. So it's good to see you guys back. And Brian specifically, I love you dropping your grade into the chat. So you guys are thinking Damonic Williams is a mid to late day 3 guy.
Yeah.
That seems to be your consensus. Okay. Next player, Jackie Marshall from Baylor. So, Chris, I know that you are lower on Marshall than Dalton from what we said backstage. So, Chris, I'm going to have you kick off Marshall, and then Dalton's going to raise the bar a little bit, probably.
So I don't have him drafted. Look, he had a low grade against Oklahoma State at 26.7 for his PFF grade. He possibly might be injured. I just don't see anything from him. I mean, he's big. He's 6'4", 306. I know there's potential. It's just, I think this is sort of, he's an undrafted free agent. He's the guy you bring into camp. He hasn't shown anything where you go, man, this guy's special. I have to have him.
Yep. And actually, Ryan, I actually think he was not originally on the list, but Ryan came on and did a Baylor podcast and was one of the podcasters. He was not the only one, because I think even EJ thought there was a little bit there when EJ covered Baylor. But right now, Chris, you're saying Marshall to you. You said based upon some injuries, lack of playing time.
Yeah, I don't even have him as one of my top 25 defensive ends or top 25 defensive tackles. To me, he's just a guy.
Got it. And I should also say that PFF had Marshall in with their edges. I was the one that called him a defensive tackle. Dalton, which position label would you give him?
So, that's kind of why I think he might be a little more draftable, because I do think at the end of the day, he's going to be moving inside to I think he'll probably be playing a 3 technique or like a 4-eye. Probably 4-eye might be ideal for him. If he really put on some weight, he could even be a 3 on third downs. But I think that's kind of why I was a little higher on him, because I remember when I was watching tape for him, it was in preparation, I think, for the Baylor Arizona State game that we did a few weeks ago. I have a 5th round grade on him, mostly on the physical potential. It's just so high. And his motor, I mean, he works really hard on his reps. And I think that's something when you talk about the physical ability plus the work ethic, how active his hands are, plus the way he really fights to maintain the point of attack against the run, even though he was playing more on the edge, I think that'll translate better for when he moves inside, which I think he's going to have to at the next level. I just don't think that he has the tools to really be an effective edge rusher in the NFL. But I think if you slide him inside, he could be, at the very least, a rotational pass rush D lineman at the next level, like where you just throw him in as like a faster, more athletic defensive tackle on passing downs, stuff like that. I think he could bring something to the table there.
Okay. Love it on Jackie Marshall. Curious if anybody in the chat has a comment on their grade on Marshall right now. So Brian, Ryan, or Brandon. Okay, so the last defensive tackle before we flip to the edges is Christen Miller from Georgia. So Chris, you want to talk about Christen Miller for a little bit?
Yes, to me, he is what everybody wants in a defensive tackle. He is explosive first step. We've seen him shoot the gaps. He can disrupt, offensive line back, plays. He has violent hands. He's a big anchor. Excellent lateral movement. He's sort of a tweener, 6'4", 308. He's a nose tackle in college. Probably moved to a defensive tackle of the NFL. Technically sound, always moving. To me, he's going to be a guy who will sneak into the first round because a lot of teams love him. A lot of teams have been scouting him. There are going to be questions about his pass rush production. He needs to convert more when, he's rushing the passer. He still needs to work on consistency with his hands. He'll lose track of play, sometimes misdirection, but he's a Georgia defensive tackle. He has played and held his own and dominated in the big games. So, look, and I think the thing nobody talks about a lot is Georgia players understand football. They understand defensive alignments, defensive, assignments. NFL likes that because they don't have to teach these guys, it's one less thing to teach. It's one less thing to work on. So to me, I think at worst, he's a second round, but I could see him sneak into the low first round.
Yeah, and before I add my commentary, Dalton, why don't you go? Christen Miller.
So, I was surprised myself that I didn't have him as my top D lineman in this group. I was a little bit lower on him watching the tape. I have an early third round grade on him right now. But he's interesting. I mean, there's a lot to like. It is the way he moves. It looks like you're watching a 300-pound linebacker, which is kind of interesting. The way he moves laterally, his quickness is pretty impressive. And the one thing that does, or the two things do worry me are, production too, but like the snap counts is probably the biggest thing that worries me. 135 snaps through 6 games is what I saw on PFF. And I do worry, if he's going to be talked about as a first round grade, I do wonder what his stamina will be like if he's playing, 30 to 40 snaps a game in the NFL. That, and one other thing that does really worry me, just because of what his role will be at the next level, the freelancing was really kind of an issue for me. There were several plays where he kind of looks to go around his guy rather than through. And when he does that, instead of occupying defensive linemen and allowing linebackers to shoot through, there were times where he's faking one way and then jumping back into the same gap that his linebacker is trying to shoot through. And that that stuff you can't do at the next level. That's going to lead to a lot of blown plays. And I think those are some things that he's going to have to work on. So I think there's a lot of potential there because, as Chris mentioned, there's so much to like in terms of physically and the way he plays. He has everything you really want in a defensive tackle, from play to play. But I think there's some things, big picture, I do worry about like how much or what all he's going to bring to the table at the next level. Big picture.
Okay, so we just did 4 defensive tackles. We're now flipping over to 4 different edges. So Ryan Sparks, most of the podcast should have at least 3 defensive tackles and at least 3 edges, and we cover a total of 8 players. The first edge is Logan Fano from Utah. And Brian, I think you and I were having a dialogue on Twitter on this. So, Dalton Blackman, you want to kick off what you saw of Logan Fano out of Utah?
So, first thing that jumps off of the tape with me for him that I really love, because you don't see a lot of the great edge rushers don't do this very well. Contain. He contains so well. He actually understands that responsibility. He really fights to get as deep as the ball, especially against the run. You don't see him over pursue the ball and then have it go around him too much. That's something that I really, really like about him. Main concern for me is I think he's a little skinny. I know right now he's listed on the screen at 6'5", 260. I don't know if he does not look 260 on tape. That's kind of a little bit of a worry for me. He just looks pretty skinny out there, and I do worry about functional strength being an issue for him. And that and his pass rush moves, he's got a lot of savvy with them, but he does at times, I think, tend to over rely on that spin move. He just tends to go back to that a little too often. And he has other moves, like he has a good bag, but he goes back to that spin move so much. And I do wonder if he can really produce on other things at a consistent level. So right now for me, he is at looking at edges, he's a 3rd round grade for me. Because I do think there's so much to like in terms of the football IQ and everything. I think, at worst, I think he is going to be a good second D end for somebody. I think, like, especially if you have him in like a 3-4 situation on the edge as like a 3-4 outside linebacker that's just purely lining up on the ball. For most of his snaps. That's kind of where I'm at with him. So 3rd round grade right now.
You said 3rd round grade on Logan Fano. Nice. Chris, where are you on Mr. Logan Fano from Utah?
5th or 6th round. It's just he's too slender. I mean, and Utah's done a great job, I think, this year of maximizing him in terms of I've watched the West Virginia game, and they rotated him in. When they thought it was a running play, they brought in a freshman defensive end who's a little more thicker and bigger to hold up the run. He comes in on pass plays. I wonder how good, though, he is, because, look, it's not his fault. John Henry Daly has taken over in Utah. This is a guy who I think is just a much better defensive end. So you see a lot of when you look at Fano and compare him to Daly, it's like, oh, yeah, now I notice things. Like a lot of times I notice when he's a pass rusher, he's standing up. He relies a lot on, as you said, it's either the spin move or just pure speed. I think the moves are limited in terms of him trusting them.
Yeah,
it's like, all right, I'm going to do either run around him or I'm going to do the spin move. And if those don't work well, I'm going to go back to them. Look, he's athletic. His brother, comes from a football family. His brother is Spencer Fano, who's going to be a top 10 player, probably in the draft. He's a leader in the locker room. He's very passionate. He is a pass rusher. But, he's almost like a linebacker. And you got to wonder, can he play linebacker, or is he just a guy who's just purely a pass rusher? And there's a need for it. It's just when you're 6'5", 249, built like him, it's tough to be a 3-down guy. So that's why I think he'll drop to the 5th, probably about the 5th round.
Yeah. The only thing I'll say sorry. was gonna say
No,
the only
go
thing I was
for it,
gonna say with the only thing I'll say with the skinniness that does concern me less is I do think the league has kind of figured out with these guys that they don't always have to be huge coming out. Max Crosby is a great example. I mean, he was around the same, and he was listed at 255, but there's no way that guy was 255 on draft day. Is kind of an example. And like a few of the guys that have come out over the last couple of years have been on the skinny side, but have found ways to produce in the NFL. I think teams are realizing like, we can keep most of the speed and then get these guys up from 250 and we can get them up to like 270 or 260, 270 in a couple of years. And they can really still be effective. I think that's kind of the way teams are starting to look at it. And that's kind of what I'm hoping. But yeah, I agree. Like if he doesn't get bigger, that could be a huge issue.
Yeah, and you're not wrong there. It's just usually your first 2 rounds, it's defensive linemen who are like, okay, we plug them in right away. We don't have to worry about them not being able to be 3 downs. So then your 3rd round, it's like, okay, well, maybe a little bit of maybe we can. You might take some time, but then 4th and 5th round, it's sort of they're developmental, and I think that's what he is. And again, I don't know if he'll. It's just. I don't know if he's physically also just strong enough to handle. I mean, we're talking unfortunately Utah. So how many big offense tackles and top offense tackles is he facing? How many good passing? And so I think teams are going to look and go, is he another Big 12 defensive end who has good numbers, but then against SEC, Big 10, big ACC teams he can't handle us. So. It's a chicken and the egg. Is he a big fish in a small pond, or does he belong where he is?
Well, so again, keeping in mind that it's a midseason scouting report, here's what I heard. He's definitely draftable.
Yes.
Like you guys are both saying he's draftable. So here's a couple questions that I have. Designated pass rusher or 3 down edge? Chris, what are your thoughts?
Designated pass rusher.
Dalton, how about you?
Year 1, probably designated pass rusher, but again, I think the ceiling is 3 downs.
Got it. And do you think his frame can add more mass, Dalton?
Yeah, I think so.
Chris, how about you?
I don't know because I'm not sure if he adds mass, will he lose the speed? That's always a trick.
Got it. Okay. And do you see enough athletic ability that he is a special teams contributor on day 1?
Yes.
Covering kicks and punts. Chris, you said yes?
Absolutely.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, you see, and okay, thank you, Brian, in the chat as well. So, that's great here for Logan Fano, the edge from Utah. The next edge, Ethan Burke from Texas. Again, Chris, I know that you are going to be the wet blanket, so I'm going to have you go first.
Yeah, it's not his fault. He's once again, this is another smaller edge linebacker. Look, he's excellent setting the edge, playing the run. He has good fundamentals. He's a great all-around athlete. This is a guy who was an all-American lacrosse player at one point. But his pass rush needs to improve. He really hasn't done. I mean, I didn't notice him at all the Ohio State game, and that worries me because if you can't, that's when I look at guys and go, okay, can you stand out? Can you do this? If you can't, that's going to be a trouble. So I think he is a 5th, 6th rounder because he's not even. He's no longer just even a pure starter in Texas. They have freshmen who are now cutting into his time.
Yeah.
Okay. So Dalton, what did you have on Ethan Burke, the edge from Texas?
Yeah, so kind of the same thing. Like if he were able to put on like more mass and honestly, for him to really, I think he could be a day 3 guy, like a late day 3 guy. Just because of the length. is really nice, and some of the alignment versatility. And he has been stout against the run, but I almost wonder if he would need to be like a pure four technique almost, and put on like 20, 30 pounds. Like he'd be like a project in that way. And I think there's like room on his frame to do that because again of how tall he is. But I mean, I think that's kind of where he would need to go. Like I don't even know if he can be an edge. I just don't know if he's fast enough to be an edge at the next level or quick enough to be an edge at the next level. I think you'd have to like move him side almost like a Goodwill version of Tyree Wilson. That's not great.
Well,
I wanted to say dollars, but I don't know if that's enough.
So, Dalton, were you day 3 or were you
late day three? Late day 3, yeah.
Okay. Cool. So we will go to the next player.
Before we do it, there's one thing I want to add on Christian Miller, and because I was looking this up. This year, I think he's been hurt because Jalen Walker left, Williams left, Damon Wilson the second left. I mean, you look at Georgia, they usually have guys to step up and be the next big stud defensive lineman. And I've noticed this year they're relying on a lot of freshmen, a lot of red shirts, sophomores. They don't have those guys. So I think for Miller, it's just he feels he has to do more because he doesn't have, Walker, Williams, Wilson, guys just, all right, I can worry about the middle. I can only get all, be the big pass rush guy because I got these guys around. You see and I guess that's what we could look at if Moten stays. Will he feel the pressure of, oh, crap, Bain is gone, Mateer is gone. I got to step up. I got to be the guy, which that can play on players.
Okay. So, Chris, let's pivot to Clayton Smith from Arizona. What did you have on Clayton Smith?
He's Clayton from Arizona State or the Arizona guy? Arizona State.
Right, because we have a Clayton Smith from Arizona, and then we have a Tre Smith from Arizona State, right?
No, Clayton Smith is from Arizona State. That's what he threw me off.
I had the school wrong. Thank you. My mistake.
I like him. I mean, he's a little more thicker. Looks like he's listed at 6'5", 255. They say he's 6'6", so we'll see who would believe. He has good quickness off the line of scrimmage. His best game is against Mississippi State. 5 tackles, 2 sacks. He has good arm length, good quickness. He gets right underneath the pads, can push people around. He gets too over aggressive. He'll overrun plays. He does a lot of grab and drag tackle on the run, but he reminds me of Charles Amenahu, where he is just a big physical defensive end in that mold. I have him as a 4th round. Yeah, I could see him going earlier than 3rd. I guess it's going to be the athletic traits. How does he, when he gets to the combine, will he be faster than what we see? Will he have more? Will he be more powerful? Will he have learned some more moves? But for now, he's on the up and up because he's producing, and it seems like he's turning the corner when he plays like top teams.
Okay. Dalton, how about you? What did you have on Clayton Smith from Arizona
So I'm
State?
very similar grade-wise. I was kind of between late 3rd, 4th round grade right now. Probably 4th round for now. Because, I mean, like as far as positives go, I mean, like Chris said, like there's just so much like about the athleticism. He's so sudden at the line of scrimmage too. I mean, that Burke, like he's another guy that really, when he takes off, he just goes and he becomes a problem very quickly in the pass rush. I mean, that's the thing. I think day 1 he can go in and be a problem on 3rd downs for teams. The thing that does worry me is he is a little bit robotic, and if you have him one-on-one with some of the better tackles in the league, I think he might struggle until he develops a few more moves. Right now, he's getting by with being a freak athlete, but that won't happen as often at the next level. The other thing that does keep me with a day 3 grade on him is against the run, especially as soon as the run starts to get away from him, as soon as the run play starts to move away from his area, he quits. Like almost right away, he kind of stops. And there's very little pursuit on those plays. He's not really looking to, scrape down and chase down the ball carrier. He's just, once his job is done, he's kind of done with the play. And that's not really something you'd like to see in a guy that's going to potentially become a 3-down guy.
Okay, so do you both agree he has the athleticism to play special teams?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I say hesitantly because I just don't know if he's that fast enough. I mean, on special teams, you don't line defensive ends who aren't really fast up. So we'll find out. To be determined.
Yeah.
Got it.
I'd say maybe just at least on field goal block for sure, just because you want that burst and his length. That'd be the big thing.
Okay, so the next last player we're covering, edge Quincy Rhodes from Arkansas. I first learned about him from James Foster. But Chris, what do you want to tell the world about Quincy Rhodes from Arkansas?
He's going to be one of those polarizing players if he comes out. I think he might stay in college just because he's a junior, and if he improves, he could be a first-round pick in 2027. He flashes. I mean, there's days where, and they brought up the Memphis game, 6 tackles, 2 sacks. He doesn't have elite explosiveness in his first step, but he has long strides and he catches up. He's still developing his pass rush plan, but he uses a lot of club swings, cross chops, spin moves. He's a big, thick guy, 6'6", 275, so he can add on a little bit more weight. He can take off some weight if he wants to. He's that perfect guy here. His footwork is just incredible. He has, good feet. He can get to the quarterback quickly. He has a good first step. Excellent closing burst. It's just there's some games you look and it's like, man, this guy is first round talent. And there's other games you look and it's like, God damn it, I don't know if it's trying. I don't know if he gets frustrated. I don't know if it's just gets maybe a bit lazy because he feels he's the best guy in the field. It's too inconsistent. Again, it's boom or bust. So if he comes out low second, early third, just because some team's going to look and go, if we can get through to this kid, man, he'll be money. But it's just there's always the worry of, will he get it?
Yeah.
Dalton, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably kind of right there on that fringe, late day 2, early day 3 right now, just because you just don't know, what you're going to get out of him. And I think the real big concern for me, I mean, the Mississippi State production was good, but the big red flag for me is did very little against Notre Dame, did very little against Ole Miss, where he's playing more, at least NFL bodies on the offensive line in those games. And I think that kind of worries me. And I'm worried that like a lot of what he's doing right now is just by being, an absolute freak at 6'6", 275. And I mean, I think that's kind of part of what really concerns me.
Yeah.
I'm very curious to see. I think he's going to be his grade's going to be kind of very much hinging on what he does throughout this SEC season. And I'm very curious to see what he does over the next few weeks. I think it's going to really tell us a lot about him.
If I was his agent, I'd advise him to get the hell out of Arkansas. I just think that's such a mess down there that for him to improve his draft, because I would argue 2027, go to a place like Miami next year, Oregon, someplace where, all right, there's a legit culture, a coaching staff, get your head on right, show you can play the full 40 minutes, from start to finish. Show teams that you will play every down, and that you're not just you're great when you feel like it.
Yeah. So let's talk about Quincy Rhodes from Arkansas for a little bit. So, Chris, I believe it was you that pointed out that he is a junior. He has another year of eligibility. He could choose to go back. Edges do tend to declare a year early. Keldrick Falk and Ruben Bain also have another year of eligibility. A lot of edges tend to come out as juniors. Ironically, there were a couple that returned to school. So both Jack Sawyer and JTT last year, if they had come out the previous year, they probably would have been drafted higher, kind of thing, right? So the NFL likes to see the runway of drafting a 21-year-old edge as opposed to a edge that has 4 years of college seasoning. So I have seen a couple of boards. I think PFF has Rhodes as like player 27 on their big board right now. Somebody else within the draft professors has Rhodes as their 11th best player. And then James Foster, I think, has him in the top 15 as well.
Yeah, I see. That's the problem I have, though. Like when we talk about Falk and Bain and David Bailey, because those are my three top defensive ends. They show up in big games. I mean, David Bailey was a monster against Utah. Keldrick Falk, was giving Oklahoma fits. Ruben Bain against Notre Dame literally almost won that game for the defense. Those are games that NFL scouts are going to go, he can play against the elite. He can play against the best. And you don't see that with Quincy Rhodes. Again, at Notre Dame, you didn't notice him. Ole Miss, you did not notice him. And that's scary because, okay, great. So are you motivated? When things don't go your way, are you going to just shut it down? And teams do want guys at 21, but this is the NFL. This is not, kindergarten. So if they feel that you're going to be somebody, they got to hold your hand, they got to coax more, and especially where we're getting less and less practice time, less and less preseason games. I could see them telling Rhodes, look, you need to show us that you're an adult because we're not, unless you have super skills like a Walter Nolan and just are dominant, we're not putting up with it. Just go back to college and show us.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the like you mentioned, the lack of production against Notre Dame and Ole Miss, like those guys too, like as far as I know, they don't really have a ton of it's not like those are teams with like any premier tackles coming out this year in the draft either. So I don't know. I know they play Auburn later this year. I'm curious to see what he does in that game because I know Auburn's got at least one tackle with some draft potential. So I'm very curious to see what he does there. But yeah, first round seems really high for him right now.
Okay. And there's a reason that we do these, right? So just because you see something on Twitter doesn't, even though I have a lot of respect for James Foster, and you will be able to see James Foster breaking down linebackers on this channel in about 4 weeks. But, I have a lot of respect for James. I have a lot of respect for really anybody in the draft professor community that's sharing their grades. So a lot of what we do is people won't agree on the grades, but I heard the same scouting report from both of you. The only difference is the grade that you give it, right? So it's like, you write up the paper. One teacher gives you a B, one teacher gives you a C, that kind of thing. So there's a reason I love this time of year. I love hearing different people's opinions on the players in the draft. That's essentially the foundation for how this channel got created. So, Chris, do you want to introduce yourself to everybody watching and let them know how they can find your last call podcast?
You can check me out at lastcallpodcast.com. I am also on Twitter. I am on Facebook. I am on LinkedIn, also on the YouTube channel, The Rumble. And this week, we already had Marcel Dorf, where we talked about UFC 320, Alex Pereira retaining his title in 80 seconds, and Rob Dashvili becoming, dare I say, the GOAT of the bantamweight division. And you can also check me on the Interval Lab podcast, where me and Ernest Silva talk football picks, news, and more. And I'll be seeing you tomorrow also on the Draft Professor podcast, where me and Drew preview Missouri, Alabama, and those smorgasbord of players.
Yeah. Dalton.
Yeah, so you can follow me on Twitter at Blackman_Dalton. And then I do some writing for the Raider Ramble. I do some draft writing and also some Raiders and AFC West articles there. And then I also do some podcasting, do a lot of gambling picks over on Degenerate Sports Network, as well as an NFL show. We do those on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Right now, the gambling show will be coming up on Wednesday. Do football picks. Also, if you're into NASCAR, I'm up 40 units with NASCAR picks. So definitely, if you like betting on NASCAR, check that out right now. But yeah, that's about it.
Welcome to the Draft Professor. For Brian, Ryan, Brandon in the chat, it is really good to see you guys again this draft cycle. And hopefully we can get you guys on a podcast here once we finish the scouting reports. So scouting reports, this is basically how Draft Professor was born. We're sharing what the write-ups of the players are on a podcast, 8 players at a time. So you guys, Dalton, Chris, you guys did an awesome job because we just did 8 players in like 42 minutes. So that was right around the amount of time that we had estimated that it would take. So you're making me look good, which is difficult to do. But we are here every day, and I will give you the scouting report schedule now. So the scouting report schedule, this podcast, Mondays at 9, will always be defensive line. The 2 people on the podcast are going to change. We had a couple people that called off today. Dalton and Chris filled in. So greatly appreciative to both of you. Tuesdays, 7:30 is wide receivers. That's Randall Slifer and Andy. And if you haven't seen Randall Slifer do wide receivers, you do not want to miss Tuesdays. He does wide receivers better than anybody I've seen. So Tuesdays, wide receivers with Randall and Andy. Then Tuesday at 9 p.m. will be offensive line. Wednesdays at 7 will be corners. Wednesdays at 9 will be defensive line. The only difference is the defensive line, the players that they do on Mondays and Wednesdays will be different. Thursdays early, we do future drafts. So we're looking at like 2027, 2028 defensive players. Thursdays at 9, EJ and Andrew are doing running backs. Fridays, the next 3 weeks is tight ends. We take a break for Halloween. The 3 weeks after that are linebackers. So the tight end group is EJ, Anthony, Max Toscano, and Sam Teets. The linebacker group is James Foster, Sam Teets, and Anthony Russo. Friday nights is corners again. That's Ian Cummings and JT Olson. Saturday mornings, we have offensive line. Sunday mornings, defensive line. And that cycle is going to repeat every week until we go through the entire draft class. So the entire goal is the podcast about every player drafted in rounds 1 through 5. So our goal is to cover every player that was drafted in rounds 1 through 5 on a podcast. It is a lofty goal, but we have, I think, the right group of people to pull that off. So for Dalton, for Chris, for myself, for the 100 podcasters at the Draft Professor, thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great night, and we'll see you on a podcast again tomorrow. Thanks, everybody.